a 16-year-old male, and I don't really partake in any sports. I'm a computer programmer, gamer, and avid comic book and movie enthusiast. That being said, to compensate for my lack of physical activity, I try to work out at least 4 times a week. I have a membership at my local 24-hour gym, and I started going about 2 years ago. What I'm going to tell you about started happening last week. After I finish my cardio, I go down to the matted area where people typically do their ab workouts, and I get started going through my routine. In the middle of doing my plank, I notice a guy staring at me. He was on my right and was wearing sunglasses, so I gave him the benefit of the doubt and wrote it off as him looking at something. As I couldn't see his actual eye, I proceeded to my next exercise. I try to ignore it and start doing my squats. That's where he obviously starts staring at me. His head was turned in my direction. There was nothing else to look at. I gave him the benefit of the doubt again. Maybe he was just thinking about something. That thought was completely diminished when he came over and without solicitation, touched me, proclaiming that I wasn't doing my squats right, which I of course knew was complete BS. At this point, he had his hand on my glutes. Let me also say that I'm very clearly underage. I don't look a day over 15. Everything about this situation was just wrong, and I knew it. I was honestly paralyzed. After I snapped out of it, I thanked him and told him that I got it. He smiled with the most perverted and creepy smile ever, but he went back to his area and continued to stare me down like a hawk stalking its prey. Stupidly, I didn't tell anyone about the situation and I didn't report it. I was extremely disturbed nonetheless. I went back the next day and I prayed that he wasn't there, but lo and behold, I see him sitting around with his creepy sunglasses. When he sees me, he smiles creepily at me and waves. I don't reciprocate at all. I wanted to avoid all confrontation with this guy. Anyways, I do my cardio without incident, and when I get to the padded area, he is ostensibly not there. But in the middle of my workout, the guy plops down next to me and asks, "Hey buddy, how often do you come to the gym?" I was honestly startled and respond with a slurred, "When I can." I put back in my earbuds and hoped that would give him the signal that I had no interest in conversing. I started doing my push-ups, and out of the corner of my eye, this creep is just laying there, analyzing me. He then decided to give me an anatomy of the bicep. He started touching my arm. He was almost caressing it. I just awkwardly said, "Okay." I was trying to be as cordial as possible since I didn't want to retaliate and potentially mischaracterize him. I go to this gym often and didn't want to develop a bad reputation. He then started moving his hand downwards, and that's when I sprung up and just left. People around me looked disconcerted, and one woman went up to me and asked if I knew this man, to which I replied no. Still, I didn't report the guy as I feared I had misconstrued what he was doing and was just trying to help. The next couple of times I went, I didn't see him at all. But yesterday is when things escalated to a point where I knew this guy had malicious intentions. Back at the ab workout area, the guy doesn't confront me at all, but he has his phone pointed at me in a suspicious way. It looked as if he was taking pictures of me, of recording me. I was freaked out, but I couldn't say anything because for all I knew, he was reading an article or something. I was unsettled, but continued my workout. That wasn't even the worst part. After my workout, I go to wash my hands in the locker room. People in there have a tendency to walk around naked, which I find to be really repulsive, but there's no rule against it. So of course, this sick creep is in the locker room, and I curse myself under my breath. While I'm washing my hands, the guy comes up literally right behind me and says, "After working out, you should shower. Come with me. I'll help." I loudly tell him to F off and that I'm reporting him to the gym and the police. Everyone else in there hears this, and I don't know what happened to him in there as I hauled ass out of there as quickly as possible. Finally, I reported him to the gym, but I didn't have a name and there are no cameras in the locker room, so the only evidence I have is him touching me in the gym. I tell my father and he's infuriated. My father goes to the same gym, and when I described the guy to him, my father said that he recognized who I was talking about. He said that the guy is always talking to younger people in the gym and that has always creeped him out. That's the only update for now. We're gonna file a police report pretty soon, and I'll post as soon as there are further details. One One night, I was at the gym around 10 p.m. because I had worked all day and my gym stays open all night. I was easing into my workout when out of nowhere, this very short Hispanic guy comes up to me and asks me what I'm doing later. Thinking this is very odd, I decided to ignore him and act like I couldn't hear him because of my headphones. Despite me ignoring him, he repeated himself a few more times, but eventually left. When I finished my workout, I went into the locker room to get my keys and checked myself out in the mirror. As I entered the locker room though, the guy was sitting on the bench staring at me, like watching my every move. So I skipped looking at myself in the mirror and grabbed my keys and go to the bathroom real quick. As I do this though, I can see he starts to follow me as I head to the urinal, so I quickly resort to a stall. When I got changed and left the stall, he was still staring at me from the urinal. I ignored him and started to leave the gym, but he was still following me. Once again, he asked me what I'm doing tonight and what my name is, but this time I couldn't pretend not to hear him, so I just said, "Sorry man, I'm not interested," and quickly got to my car and drove away. A week later, I had work again this day, so I was at the gym around 10 p.m. and everything was normal. While working out, I saw some friends, and then I see this same guy from a week ago staring at me while laying against an empty wall. I try to ignore him, but every machine or workout I moved towards, he would follow me to. I stayed by some friends, so he would hopefully not come near me. Thankfully, when those friends left, so did he, so I thought I was safe. I got my stuff together and headed out around 11:30. At this point, my phone had died, and I was a little worried. But then I started to full-on freak out because when I approached my car, there was a rose in my truck's handle. I actually started to run and went back in to get assistance from someone working because I didn't feel like dying that day. After removing it, I sped home as fast as I could. A few days after, I had a normal workout, and I exited the gym and I didn't see him until I went to my truck. He was parked right next to me, standing in front of his car. When I got in my car, I could see him watching me the whole time. Now every time I go late at night, he's waiting for me and asking me weird questions. I talked to the workers about this and they said he's not from here and is just trying to be nice, but I can't help but wonder why he doesn't get the hint when I tell him no all the time. I wake up hours early in the morning to go to the gym now, but when I do go late, he's still there watching me every time. What should I do? Another time, there was a rose on my windshield and a phone wire wrapped around my handle. Then more recently, he added me on Snapchat. I don't know how he knows my name or how he knew what car was mine in the first place, but I'm very creeped out. To all the gym goers, stay safe. You never know who you're working out next to. When I was around 19, I got really into weightlifting at my university's rec center. It was a massive complex with multiple weight rooms, 2 indoor tracks, and even an Olympic swimming pool. I'd lift 4 to 5 times a week and often cool off with laps in the pool. One day in the weight room, I was approached by a guy named Brett. He didn't look like a student. He was older, probably late 30s, early 40s, but very friendly. The rec center wasn't just for students. Anyone could purchase a membership. Casual conversation's pretty common in gyms, and I was so naive in those days, I didn't think anything of it when he asked personal questions, like where I was from and where I worked, which was at a grocery store in my hometown, the next town over. I didn't see this guy in the gym every day, but it was common to run into him a couple times a week. We'd talk for a bit, but eventually I began to sense that he was interested in more than just saying hi. One day, he mentioned that he'd been by the grocery store where I worked, but didn't see me there and wanted to know what my schedule was. Despite my inexperience, I immediately recognized that this wasn't normal and that I didn't want to talk to this guy anymore. I lied and told him my schedule was different every week and got back to my workout. One day, not long after, I was walking into work to start my shift. We started at 9 a.m. and he was there by the entrance, just hanging around. He called out to me and tried to talk to me, but I told him, "Hey man, I'm at work right now." After that, I didn't really talk to him in the gym anymore. Looking for me at my job was too weird, and it honestly pissed me off. He'd approach me and I'd just coldly say, "Hey," and look away. The final straw was one evening when I'd just finished swimming laps. The shower room was an open room with 4 shower stands, each with 4 nozzles pointing north, east, south, and west, so 4 people could use the same stand at once. No curtains, no partitions, which may seem odd these days, but I never thought anything of it since I grew up swimming at this pool. I was in there alone showering, my swim trunks hanging on the drying rack, when I glanced towards the doorway to the locker room area, and I saw this creep peeking around the doorway watching me shower. He immediately ducked back and was gone by the time I finished up and went to get dressed, but I went straight to the service counter to report what had happened. I only knew his first name, but they seemed to know who I was talking about. I never saw him again after that. A friend sent me this story. I'll tell it from her perspective. I'm a sophomore at university. Like many women my age, I find going to the gym to be a pretty nice way to break up the day or start my day. I typically work out during the mornings, but one day I went in the evening since I didn't have much time earlier. Let me clarify. I understand it's somewhat natural to look at other people in the gym. As a woman, I feel the stares at moments, but never to a point where I need to remove myself from the situation. On this evening, though, I noticed an older guy walk into the same workout room as me and didn't think much of it. I proceeded to work out and thought he left, which relieved me because he gave off some majorly creepy vibes. 30 minutes into my workout, I'm the only girl in the room, and I noticed that he had been sitting in a corner in the back, angled to look at me. Sitting would be an understatement. He was spread out on his side, licking his lips as he stared, not just at me, but at my crotch. I wish I'd said something, but to be honest, I was so stunned by how blatantly gross he was acting, I just got up and left. I reported his actions to a lady working one of the gym desks, describing his build and attire, but she already knew who I was talking about. She said,
"Yeah, he's super creepy, but we can't really do anything about him. You're not going back there, are you?"
As creepy as this man was, I was more disturbed by the fact that nothing could be done about it. She even knew him by name, which means others have definitely complained. As far as I know, no action was ever taken. I still go to the gym, but try to avoid the later hours. When I was 15 years old, halfway through my sophomore year, I switched from public to online school due to anxiety issues. For my PE credit, my mom signed me up to a gym pretty close to our house. Considering my anxiety problems, she signed up with me, so at least I wasn't going alone. The gym in question had 2 levels. Upstairs was women only, and downstairs was both men and women. The upstairs wasn't as big and didn't have the same equipment, so for the first 40 minutes or so, my mom and I would be upstairs, and then we would go downstairs to finish. About 2 or 3 weeks into going to the gym, whenever we went downstairs, this older, I'd say about 60 or so, man started to stare at me. The thing about me is that I'm generally pretty unaware. I don't know what I thought he was staring at me for, but I took it as normal and just awkwardly smiled at him anytime I accidentally made eye contact. It really only happened when we walked down the stairs anyway, since he was near the treadmills and the area we used was past that. One day, however, when we walked down and walked over to the weights area, he followed us over. While we started to do our thing, he just stood there watching, not even pretending to lift his own weights. My mom gave him a good glare since he was staring at me, but he didn't seem to notice. At that time, even regular interactions with people made me uncomfortable, so you can imagine how a man much larger and older than me, straight out staring at me, felt. This continued for the next few days. After my mom and I walked downstairs, he would follow us and stare. I'd try not to look at him if I could help it, but sometimes I would accidentally glance that way and he'd be adjusting himself. I tried asking my mom if I could stay upstairs rather than going downstairs, and I think me being near tears and begging to not have to go down really made her realize how this was all affecting me. She still made me go down with her eventually, but that time, when the man followed us, she turned around and told him right off. She told him if he didn't leave me alone, she'd cut off the parts that made him act like such a creep. I'm 18 now, and I've had other weird experiences, but this one still really bothers me.